are these people?
Now it's time for Raging About Israel. Everybody ready? Everybody ready? Because there's a lot to say fuck Israel about this week. Oh boy. Okay. Let's... what happened over here? Hey, you're not supposed to see that.
I don't know.
Whoa. Okay.
You broke it.
I sure did. Antiwar news. Dave DeCamp, Indie Media Award honoree, inaugural class, publishes the other day, Israeli Knesset passes non-binding resolution calling for the annexation of the West Bank. This was the big game. This was why they backed Trump specifically, was that he basically said that he would allow them without pushback to annex the West Bank. And now it's happening. The motion passed in a vote of 71-13.
There's no Hamas in the West Bank, so how... But what about the hostages?
Yeah. The Israeli Knesset on Wednesday passed a non-binding resolution that calls for the annexation of the occupied West Bank, a symbolic show of support for the total takeover of the Palestinian territory. The motion passed 71-13, with two opposition parties in the 120-seat Knesset boycotting the vote. The resolution received the support of all 60 lawmakers who are part of the current government, what a surprise, as well as members of the United Torah Judaism, Noam, and Yisrael Beitenu parties. I don't even know who these parties are. The resolution states that the declaration would make it clear to the world that Israel will not accept solutions that involve dangerous territorial concessions, and that it is committed to its future as a secure Nazi Jewish state. You mean, yeah, that's not cool.
State, yeah.
You know, a religious dictatorship where they have supremacy over everybody else? Yeah, no. It says that Judea and Samaria, fuck you for even using the biblical terms. The biblical name for the West Bank, fuck you in your Bible, is an inseparable part of the historical homeland of the Jewish people. So then why the fuck have you continued to give it up all these years and allow people, again, it's where that's where you've been squeezing people. So now the last vestiges of where you've allowed them to survive and exist, now you're mad that they live there too. Fuck off. Following the vote, Knesset Speaker Amir Ohana, a member of Prime Minister Benjamin Fuck Off Netanyahu's Likud war criminal party,
Ohana means family.
Claim that Jews cannot be considered occupiers of the Palestinian territory. Jews are everywhere, asshole. The European settlers that live there are certainly occupiers of the Palestinian territory, you fucking lying douchebag. This is our land. This is our land. This is our home. Prove it, fucko. The land of Israel belongs to the people of Israel, of which you are not one because you are a Khazarian European. In 1967, the occupation did not begin.
Do we see DNA evidence? Show me DNA evidence.
Dude, I mean, it's beyond infuriating. In 1967, the occupation didn't begin, they're saying. It ended and our homeland was returned to its rightful owners. How about no? We are the original first natives of this piece of land. Jews cannot be the occupier of a land that for 3,000 years has been called Judea, except it wasn't. It was called fucking Palestine. It was called Palestine. Look at fucking Raiders of the Lost Ark. Look at every map and encyclopedia for 100 fucking years before World War II, asshole. It wasn't called Judea. While the resolution is symbolic, it comes as the Israeli government has been working to advance settlements in the West Bank, and as Jewish settlers have been increasing violent attacks against Palestinians with the goal of driving them from their land. The current Israeli government has prioritized the expansion of settlements since it came into power at the end of December 2022. right about the time that it started ramping up killings of Palestinians, and then looked the other way on October 7th as the most watched wall in the history of watched walls, just somehow ended up not watched at all. Amazing how that just happened, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Wouldn't have been a Hannibal directive or anything afterwards. Okay. Earlier this month, all the Likud ministers in the government urged the war criminal Netanyahu to annex the territory, citing support from the Trump administration. Like we said, it was Miriam Adelson that bought off the Trump administration and the Trump campaign for the right to be able to do this. Quote, the strategic partnership backing and support of the U.S. President Donald Trump have made it a propitious time to move forward with it now. Propitious, yeah. And ensure that Israel's security for generations. I don't think so. You take that and every other Arab nation starts attacking. Or so we expect. So far, it has not happened. And going after Syria was a good part of that. Right now, there would only basically be a response from Iran. Because there's no more Iraq left. There's no more Syria left. There's a Saudi Arabia that's heavily U.S. aligned. There's a UAE that's heavily U.S. aligned. There's a Qatar that's heavily U.S. aligned. Qatar. Right? You think about the region. There's Turkey that's heavily NATO aligned. And all of a sudden, it's like Russia isn't going to do it either, especially on behalf of an Arab nation.
No. China's not there either.
Like, they've already signed a thing that stated that even if Iran gets attacked, that they're not necessarily required to step in and defend Iran like an Article 5 NATO treaty is. Correct. Like, that was 2 months ago they signed that. But we got a long way to go.
Yep.
Shout out to 2024 Indie Media Honoree Decensored News, one of the best outlets out there. Go follow them. Over on Twitter, over on Substack, over on Decensored.news also. As they continue to starve and exterminate the Palestinians in Gaza, Israel is concentrating the remaining population into even smaller camps. Concentrating into camps. I think I heard that somewhere before.
Yeah, where have we heard that before?
More than 86% of Gaza is under displacement orders and militarized zones, says the International Organization for Migration. That's a division of the UN. No place is safe, they write. This is their animation. Watch this shit. Watch this shit right here. This is just from March 18th.
Displacement orders in Gaza.
This is from March 18th through July 16th. And look at the numbers of displaced people go up. It's already over 6 figures. This is by the end of March. All these red zones are cleansed ethnically.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, here we go. This is just the beginning. It's going to get, that was the big one when they moved the line in.
That was the big one.
Now you got 725,000 displaced on July 16th. That's where the line was at the end. Right there. Okay? Everyone that was in that big area now just can live in these gray areas. Maybe. And then they're shot at when they're walking for food and water.
I mean, this feels like old info, too, because there's now, like, that line's gotten even smaller recently.
Well, that was 11 days ago. Yes, they continue to concentrate it.
Right. I mean, you're also talking about, like, where can you grow food here?
Nowhere.
Right? And it's, like, not in those gray areas. Like, you know... So, and they barely could grow food already in the areas they were at. So, you know, this is what a genocide looks like: starvation and siege warfare.
And they're not
on an entire population.
And of course, they're not allowed to fish, right? There was an order put that they're not allowed to fish. Thank you, Seven Sign Soul over on Substack for mentioning that. Where is Dan
He's
Cohen
been
on
doing that
Capture
for a
News?
minute.
Dan Cohen is an Indie Media Award honoree for sure. Same shit they did in Haiti. I sort of. Yeah, there's plenty of Dan's. Dan's been covering this too. But I got a bunch of other stuff tonight. Mondoweiss and other Indie Media Award honorees as well. Dan's on the list. He's up there. So this is where they've literally allowed all the people that are left to live, and then they're going to clear them out of there too. And then basically the whole thing will end up red. And that's when they bring the fences in and they hide this area from everybody. And that's when they bring in all the construction trucks and they start rebuilding on top of the bones. And that's when the Gaza reconstruction plan goes. Yes, they had food before these fuckers came. They had olive groves, which were burned to the ground by Israel. You're absolutely right, Vicky. They ain't getting water or unbombed land to farm. Absolutely right, Fred.
And keep in mind how much land before October 7th has been fucking taken. Like, you know, since the Nakba.
Most of it. Right. Descent Bloom, quote, the aid sites are all areas they've been told to go, then they shoot at them when they go. And I think we've covered that a couple times already on the show. All right.
Yep.
Mondoweiss. So this is another one. I wanted to talk about the New York Times, and we hate the New York Times here, obviously, but I don't think that people quite realize just the level of Zionist trash that the New York Times is. And the reason why they are so biased. Mondoweiss did an incredible deep dive recently into the leadership of the New York Times. Pointing out...
New York Times? Oh, sorry.
Well, that's what Christina P. used to call them a long time ago, by the way. The New York Times has helped to enable and sustain Israel's ongoing genocide, or at least whitewash it in the public press. A new dossier reveals the close ties of 20 top editors, executives, and journalists at the Times who've covered Gaza and their connection to Israel and Zionism, and whitewashed it the entire time. All right? Sons serving in the IOF, ties to Zionist lobbying groups or think tanks, living in a stolen house or has lived in a stolen house in Israel themselves, or 3 of them who actually served in the IOF themselves. We are putting the New York Times on notice. Since the Zionist genocide in Gaza began over 20 months ago, the paper of record has run cover for Israel's war crimes. We've witnessed the Zionist entity drop 2,000-pound bombs on displaced Palestinians forced to survive in tents, massacre starving Palestinians at aid sites, arrest and torture Palestinians accused of fighting back or administering care, destroy Gaza's entire healthcare system, obliterate almost every one of its schools and universities, damage over 90% of its residential buildings, and block food and supplies from entering the besieged strip, despite what the fuck they decide to claim on wherever yesterday. But the New York Times journalists have chosen to ignore, whitewash, distort, or justify each one of these crimes, which we've brought a lot of here. As much as any weapons manufacturer, the New York Times is a part of the machinery of war, producing, in the realm of public opinion, the impunity that enables and sustains Israel's ongoing genocide. When we first occupied the lobby of the New York Times in November of 2023, we called out the Times' refusal to historicize the Al-Aqsa flood within the context of Israel's over 7-decade-long occupation of Palestine and its choice to frame the Israeli military's bombardment of Gaza as a targeted war against Hamas. We demanded that the Times tell the truth. We printed our own paper, The New York War Crimes, which contained the names of Palestinian martyrs recorded at the time. It took us over an hour just to read the names of martyrs under the age of 1. We called on our audiences to boycott the Times, to divest their time, trust, and attention from the paper, and to unsubscribe from its quote-unquote news, games, and recipes. That includes Wordle. Fuck Wordle. We are not the
and
first.
The wire cutter.
Yep. We are not the first to point out the New York Times commitment to Zionism. The dossier we released this month was built on the investigative work of outlets and organizations including the Electronic Intifada, Mondoweiss, The Intercept, Fairness and Accuracy in Reporting, and Palestinian writers who've exposed this fraudulence of the paper of record for decades. Since October 7th, 2023, such critiques have accrued both new audiences and new urgency. Data tracking word choices across the newsroom, as well as leaks of the Times editorial directives, evince anti-Palestinian bias. Times headline corrections have been a favorite discursive tool of the Palestine Solidarity movement. Alan McLeod and Asal Rod fixed headlines almost daily to reveal the revisionism, to set the record straight, to tell the truth. Our dossier adds to this body of knowledge. It exposes 20 high-ranking editors, executives, and journalists who cover the war on Gaza and have ties to the Zionist state, further undermining the Times' unearned prestige. Natan Odenheimer served in the Maglan Special Forces Commando Unit of the Israeli occupation forces. Now that he's a Jerusalem correspondent for the Times, he writes about and embeds with his former brothers in arms. I mean, murderers in arms. How can we ever expect someone to report on the occupation correctly when he wore the occupier's uniform for 4 years? Isabel Kirshner is the mother of 2 former IOF soldiers and the wife of another. After his tour, Kirshner's husband went on to direct an Israeli think tank's program on information strategy, a department tasked with shaping a positive image of Israel in the media. You mean brainwashing and propaganda. We don't have to ask how this...
Daniela Weiss would want him to do.
We don't ask how this relationship...
You have to brainwash people.
Yes, she belongs in prison.
Fucking worse than that.
All right. We don't have to ask how this relationship shapes her coverage. Kirshner has cited her husband's think tank over 100 times since she started writing for the Times in 2007. Our dossier, which lays bare the material connections and historical allegiances of editors, executives, and influential writers to Zionism, clearly demonstrates that the Times is compromised. The entire institution is systematically organized to protect Israel from international accountability. It's interesting that Barry Weiss left there because it seems tailor-made for her now. So maybe she left because she accomplished...
That's the Assad toady, right?
Right. Maybe she left because she accomplished her goal of leaving it for that level of Zionism and starting her own independent, quote-unquote, Zionist-funded outlet that's VC-funded and housed on Substack called the Free Press, which is fucking hilarious and the biggest troll ever. While they lie about beheaded babies and rapes on October 7th. Still. The Times support...
Free Palestine.
You better. The Times support of Zionism and the settler states' colonial mission across the region is deeply embedded in the paper's history. A.M. Rosenthal, head of the Times newsroom for nearly 2 decades, was praised at his funeral for showing that it was possible to love Israel every bit as much as to love our own country. You mean to be a traitor to your own country? Max Frankel, executive editor of the Times for over 10 years, admitted that he wrote from a pro-Israel perspective and said he was expected to stand up for Israel, whether they're right or wrong. Fuck Israel.
So how is that? Okay.
That's cheerleading. That's not journalism.
What?
The Times has condemned our research as a vile campaign in the press, but refuses to accept that Israel's killing of over 200 Palestinian journalists has been targeted. We regret ever calling the martyr Hossam Shabbat the colleague of elite journalists who write their propaganda from stolen homes in occupied Jerusalem.
Jesus Christ.
Those who serve in the IOF, who get paid by the Israel lobby to spew Hasbara are not the colleagues of Palestine's bravest. They are their enemies. The paper's response to our dossier deploys the same tortured logic present in its coverage. How can our research be both public knowledge and inaccurate? We know why the Times has been silent on the killing of media workers. Palestinian journalists expose the same truth the paper seeks to obscure. They're constantly charged with being biased and unable to report objectively because they're Palestinian. Their identity is the ultimate accusation. But in the Times, fairness evades the Palestinians, and their struggle to live free is unrighteous, unjust, and worthy of condemnation, while Israel can do whatever they want to do to stop them from that struggle.
They're freedom fighters,
the New York Times doesn't recognize Palestine. An editor of the Times once told the Palestinian intellectual Ibrahim Abu Lughod. Abu Lughod responded, well, Palestine doesn't recognize the New York Times either. His refusal to acknowledge the Times 37 years ago is an invitation to undercut its prestige. Everyone should heed his call and boycott, divest, and unsubscribe from the paper of record. And I don't know too many people here who do. If you do, cancel that shit. To imagine a free Palestine within our lifetimes, it helps to imagine a world without the New York fucking Times. Fuck the New York Times. And fuck Israel. So, here's more proof that what's been happening has been happening. Gaza Humanitarian Foundation whistleblower exposes aid massacres, and this was out of the Dissident. Okay? The Dissident is an INN co-founder, actually. He pulled this out of a couple places like Middle East Eye. Israel's GHF, okay, which had set up 4 fake aid distribution sites in Gaza, guarded by U.S. mercenary security firms Safe Reach Solutions and UG Solutions, has been used as a quote-unquote death trap for Palestinians starved by the Israeli blockade. We've talked about this before. Okay, more than 1,000 Palestinians killed by Israeli forces while trying to access food and water. Now, an American military contractor who was guarding an aid site has come forward to Israel's Channel 12 and blown the whistle on Israel's use of the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation for massacres. I thought they were denying that. And that was on Israel TV. He stated in the interview, quote, I'm a career veteran in the United States Army who's been deployed to combat 12 times in 4 different wars. I have never in my entire military career been a part of, allowed, or bystander to the use of force against unarmed innocent civilians, and I'm not going to do it now. Too late. Referring to the GHF, he said, there's no fixing this. This needs to be there needs to be an end to it. There needs to be an end put to it. The UN was already distributing food beforehand, easily and well. And Israel stopped that because they were distributing food easily and well. They wanted to starve the Palestinian people, and that's what's happening. So this whistleblower recounted a story of a GHF guard spraying an entire bottle of pepper spray into an unarmed Palestinian civilian's face when he was desperately picking up food, saying, there was a man who was on the ground. He was on his hands and knees, and he was picking up noodles. The UG security personnel wanted to get the Palestinians off the site. So they started yelling, hey, let's go, let's leave. The guy wasn't armed. He wasn't a threat. So this UG contractor sprayed an entire can of pepper spray into the guy's face. That's lethal. He also recounted a UG contractor killing a Palestinian woman with a stun grenade, saying, I was standing next to these 2 women, and this contractor threw this stun grenade, and it landed between me and them. This thing hit us, and she just dropped, just lifeless, collapsed to the ground, and it looked like she'd been killed. He also told the outlet that the sites were deliberately set up in areas that force Palestinians into dangerous areas of Gaza in order to reach them. Why would they do that? He said, quote, the IDF engineers built the sites and decided where they would be. In reality, the sites put the population at great disadvantage and in great danger. The sites were not set up in locations, nor were they set up in a way that was conducive to delivering and distributing humanitarian aid to a needy population. That, to me, is the biggest indictment of all. Like, that's what they were supposed to be doing there. The Palestinians couldn't have vehicles. They couldn't have cars. They were on foot. Most of them don't even have fucking shoes. There's no water going through active war zone areas because they wanted them to be killed. He also said that U.S. mercenaries have been shooting at Palestinians once they reach the aid sites, which we've also been reporting on, claiming, and he said here, quote, as the Palestinians were finishing getting the aid that was on the site, the UG Solutions personnel began shooting in their direction, shooting at them, shooting at their feet, trying to get them to leave. Like you see in the movies, like in the old Wild West. Get out of here. Pew, pew, pew. Like it's a big fucking game. They're having a good old time. He finished the interview saying, quote, if the UN method had the amount of support and security and coordination that GHF is getting, then the UN process would be very successful. And he links to the video here. Really important that this is documented and documented on Israeli fucking TV. I'm not playing it because I don't want to get taken down from the copyright. But we've got more.
Yeah.
Now, a lot of people like to bring Carey Wedler.
Wait, there's more.
But wait, there's more fuckery. Carey Wedler, Pleasure to Burn. I love her stuff. And people like her videos. She's clever and she's hilarious. But she also writes really good stuff. And a lot of people wouldn't bring this one, but I wanted to specifically because I knew a lot of people wouldn't. But it's really good. She says this is that Palantir-Linked executives are helping to launch a new propaganda film venture, framing it as an all-American counter to Hollywood, but so far it's nothing more than imperial agitprop. And it's also laundering genocide in Gaza. You know, Hollywood has had quite a bit of pushback, but now she's reporting on this, and this was the other day on the 24th on Thursday. Palantir-linked tech executives are reportedly helping raise funds for a film production company that intends to make pro-U.S. government movies. According to a new article from Semaphore this week, Founders Films, and remember who owns the Founders Fund? A guy named Pete, a Dallas-based production company, is entering the culture war to fight for American nationalism and exceptionalism. The new company is backed by founding Palantir Chief Technology Officer Shyam Sankar, who recently joined the Army as a lieutenant colonel with several other big tech executives. This new Detachment 201 was reportedly
crazy.
Bonkers. Was reportedly Sankar's idea. So now
insane.
The tech bros got lieutenant colonel fucking commissions.
They just gave him some stripes, dude. Here you go. Here's your stripes.
Other backers.
What a fucking shit show we're in.
Other backers include a former head of business development for Palantir, Ryan Podolsky, an investor, Christian Garrett. Garrett's firm is invested in government contractor companies like SpaceX, Palantir, and Anduril. Anduril is currently working on AI drone warfare for the military and was just granted an effective monopoly via the big, beautiful bill on supplying the autonomous surveillance towers to U.S. Customs and Border Protection. That's not good. These three men are reportedly raising money for the new film endeavor. For context, Palantir, again, is a politically entrenched software, AI, and data analysis corporation that was partially funded early on by In-Q-Tel, which is the CIA's investment wing. They were implicated in Snowden's 2013 releases and have contracts with numerous U.S. government agencies, including the Pentagon, CDC, ICE, and the IRS by way of the Department of Government Efficiency. How convenient. They recently came under extensive scrutiny from the fuck you New York Times, okay? And they reported that they were helping Trump compile a centralized database on Americans, which the company vehemently denied as they were doing it. Palantir co-founder Peter Thiel and his associates have extensive ties to the current administration. However, they also have ties to the CIA and In-Q-Tel. However, as with many nefarious political arrangements, Palantir's government profiteering is not limited to Republican administrations. Further, Palantir provides services to governments outside the U.S., remember, and recently brought the AI-driven Project Maven, which it built for the Pentagon, to NATO. So they're expanding their footprint.
Yeah. And I'm pretty sure also directly involved with, like, Where's Daddy and Lavender.
AI, yeah.
Over there in Israel. So...
a guerrilla war against the status quo, right? According to an in-depth article, Sankar posted on his Substack late last year, that the Palantir CTO believes there must be a heroic challenge to the status quo that dominates Hollywood films. Why? This aligns with a recent Founders Films pitch deck obtained by Semaphore. In it, the new company decries the current state of affairs. Quote, "The American brand is broken. Hollywood is AWOL. Movies have become more ideological, more cautious, and less entertaining. Large segments of American and international viewers are underserved. Production costs have soared and sales are flagging." This just screams to me. This is like, the liberals have taken over Hollywood. So we're going to make our own conservative, pro-American version, right?
We're going to make Hollywood great again.
But you can be sure that they're also going to try to make Israel great again. Further in his 2024 article, Sankar accurately points out that films are a form of soft power, highlighting that governments have an interest in exporting their cultures to craft a positive image around the world. Yes, they also do predictive programming, and they embed with the military and intelligence. And they bleed out stories in advance to, again, predict, to let people kind of understand of what's about to happen and go, hey, I saw a movie about this. And that way they're much more willing to accept it when it does happen. He frames the communist Chinese regime as an arch nemesis of the United States, opining that America is in the middle of Cold War II against a communist enemy with more people, more money, and more military might than the Soviets ever had. Well, that's correct, but nothing else in that statement is. He predictably treats this...
I only liked Hollywood when it made movies like Sound of the South. That's what I bring back my movies. I guarantee you that's what we're... Like, what wasn't the other... Was it Goebbels or whatever that was like, we got to do Nazi videos, Nazi movies?
Goebbels was the...
Right, did a whole thing on that. Which one was that?
I think that was Goebbels.
Yeah.
Of course, in his version of reality,
something like that.
America is the good guy standing against oppressors and evildoers who seek to subjugate the world. This is Rich coming from the CTO of a company. Yeah, but this is literally coming from the CTO of a company helping multiple government agencies surveil the public more efficiently. On one hand, Sankar correctly identifies governments' efforts to exert soft power to influence the world in their favor. The Chinese government does exert immense influence over Hollywood studios, whose leaders are willing to bend the knee to the Chinese government in exchange for access to Chinese audiences. The NBA did the same thing, by the way. However, the Palantir CTO's apparent answer to this, Founders Films, embodies pervasive and outdated ideologies and ways of thinking. He espouses a false dichotomy that paints the U.S. as the world's moral authority. Accordingly, Founders Films wants to make films that promote American exceptionalism. Good luck. You mean American lies? In reality, the Chinese government is undeniably, the Chinese government is undeniably oppressive and corrupt, but the U.S. government is not its freedom-loving counterpart. Rather than seeking to produce thought-provoking films that explore true freedom and sincere skepticism of government and authority, Founders Films appears on track to produce traditional right-wing flavored pro-government propaganda. According to Semaphore, the production slate includes films about the 9/11 terror attacks. Hope it blames Israel, but it won't.
Terror.
Okay. The Trump administration's 2020 assassination of Iranian General Qasem Soleimani. As a good thing?
Soleimani, oh God.
The botched U.S. withdrawal from Afghanistan under Joe Biden. Democrats can't do anything right. You mean under the timetable that Trump had set arbitrarily?
Yeah.
The Chinese spy operation.
Weather balloon, the movie.
Right. Seeking to upend America's position as the dominant global power. Bro, this is comical.
It's fucking awful.
And then whitewashing and bragging about the recent U.S.-Israeli airstrikes that claimed to take out the Iranian regime's nuclear program, but didn't, of course.
Starring Jerry Seinfeld in his new role.
To complete the pro-government propaganda, the studio also plans to make a new version of Atlas Shrugged. Of course they're going to repackage Ayn Rand.
Of course. We got to fucking Ayn Rand it up. We got to.
This choice rounds out the current right-wing narrative, the age-old elevation of American exceptionalism, militarism, and government authority under the cover of libertarian, anti-government, anti-authoritarian values. In reality, military industrialism and empire are anything but libertarian. So she says,
one of these fucking days, libertarians will figure it the fuck out too. But till then,
ignorance is strength. Well, now we're getting into inksock language. Okay. The new venture's focus on American militarism and exceptionalism perfectly highlights the false dichotomy Thankar paints as Cold War II. As evil, quote unquote, as the Chinese regime may be, and I disagree with Carey on how evil they are, the U.S. military is no stranger to abuses and atrocities. For one, American militarism and exceptionalism have led to decades of wars that are often based on lies. As Julian Assange famously said, these wars have contributed to a massive national debt on the backs of regular Americans, not to mention the immense toll on soldiers fighting these endless wars, not to mention the opportunity cost of things we could have been doing with that money and time instead. Nobody ever talks about what's been sacrificed that way. The advances in technology that weren't for military gain. More explicitly, U.S. troops and those who command them have committed grave inhumanities. A sampling of morally egregious acts includes the My Lai massacre in Vietnam, torture in Afghanistan, ongoing airstrikes that have killed countless civilians, Obama's drone program, the use of depleted uranium, and turning a blind eye to child sex abuse in Afghanistan and everywhere else for that matter. It appears
still irradiated, by the way.
It appears the success of the new film company rests on the mental gymnastics Orwell once described. The nationalist not only does not disapprove of atrocities committed by his own side, but he has a remarkable capacity for not even hearing about them. Sounds like Israel. Despite Sankar's stated desire to challenge the status quo, his vision and that of Founders films are aligned with the establishment. Indeed, Sankar refers to Top Gun as an American ideal film. You mean the gay anthem? Oh my God.
Oh my God.
As it happens, Top Gun is one of countless movies directly influenced by the U.S. government. The Pentagon enjoyed say over the film's script. The Pentagon enjoyed say over the film's script in exchange for consulting and providing equipment to make the movie more realistic. The 2022 sequel.
Pentagon.
Yeah, those guys. Almost certainly had the same military influence, the sequel. Okay. The original 1986 film also reflects the power of cinema in shaping people's opinions and perceptions. It provided a small but significant boost to naval recruitments. And I know people that definitely joined the military because of Top Gun. Right? So she says the longstanding
Idiots.
relationship between Hollywood and the U.S. government, which encompasses not just the Pentagon, but agencies like CIA and the FBI, has produced inarguably pro-government films. All of them are pro-government. They're not allowed to be... Look at Transformers. Jesus Christ. The film products of this relationship...
All of them. What do you mean? Everything that uses any military fucking equipment ever is fucking propaganda shit. So... Which the other half of Hollywood is just propaganda. So, one of the two.
Yeah, pretty much. The film products of this relationship reinforce the same image of the American government that the Palantir-Linked production company seeks to boost. Unsurprisingly, right-wing culture warriors rarely decry this flavor of Hollywood propaganda. It's unclear whether Founders Films will seek a similar relationship with government agencies, but it wouldn't be surprising. Actually, it would be the most obvious thing that I can imagine. All right. And of course, outcomes are greater than intentions. Far from being a true challenge to oppressive ideological influence, Founders Films is on track to reinforce the same pro-government narratives, culture wars, false left-right dichotomy, and polarization that have long plagued media, politics, and society at large. While Sankar may be correct that Hollywood has rolled over for the communist Chinese regime and that the film industry needs fresh content because they do keep recycling sequels and prequels and offshoot stories and
it's just fucking capitalism.
Right. Regurgitating
it's
establishment
always that ruins things.
Regurgitating establishment propaganda tropes from decades past is hardly an effective solution. Perhaps the Palantir executive-backed film company is knowingly perpetuating harmful, subservient ideologies as an intentional push to subjugate people's minds. Maybe. Or perhaps the new project is merely a reflection of their own sincere, albeit propagandized beliefs. It may be a bit of both. It's not. Either way, their true intentions matter less than the end result, conditioning people to revere their jingoistic overlords as liberators and encourage affection and reverence for good authoritarians. Again, Carey, I disagree with you on the Chinese communist stuff and
China.
How they're evil and authoritarian and they're the big bad guy that we have to worry about in the future. They're already the world dominant global power, and they're going to be for the rest of our lives. Like it, don't give a fuck.
Mm-hmm.
They don't give a fuck. There are too many of them that we can't stop them. Now, one other thing I wanted to mention, another Indie Media Award honoree, Andy Worthington, mentioned something last night, and I'm not 100% sure what's happened today with it, but there was talk of the resumption of aid deliveries in Gaza after 146 days of no trucks getting through, despite what Israel claims. He said it appears that the outrage caused by the horrific images of deliberately starved children in Gaza, and all you have to do is look all over Twitter or Substack to see pictures of emaciated children and adults, like literally skin and bones, looking like Nazi Germany. Those images have finally stirred sufficient international pressure to compel Israel to, at least temporarily, clear its eyes of the red mist that's been in place relentlessly for 22 months almost, and especially since March 1st, when Netanyahu's wretched genocidal regime imposed its latest barbaric siege on all food, water, medicine, and fuel supplies into Gaza. Again, you can lie about that and say that they're not. March 1st was the last time any aid got in. Except for death shrouds. Remember, they allowed 7 trucks full of death shrouds in. I remember you reported on that. On Twitter, recovering Zionist Shael Ben Ephraim says that, quote, immense international pressure has led Israel to abandon its policy of using GHF death traps, and that, according to reports within Israel, there will be a, quote, humanitarian pause of military operations tomorrow, as well as a, quote, resumption of military escorts to UN and other aid organization convoys, and the, quote, creation of humanitarian corridors. This is all good news if it's actually happening. He says a reliable IDF source told him that, quote, everything we have done in the last few months has failed. The government has finally realized that the pictures broadcast around the world have weakened our hand and strengthened Hamas. Also on Twitter, the Palestinian-American poet Mossab Abu Toha also noted that the promised resumption of aid in Gaza tomorrow, including the, quote, safe movement of UN convoys delivering food and medicine, unquote, and, quote, reconnecting a power line to Gaza desalination plant, boosting daily water output to 20,000 cubic meters also would be an incredible thing. I want to see it happen. What happened, he asks? Some countries applied pressure on Israel, which means these same countries could stop the genocide. And as Ben Ephraim described it, quote, the attempt to deprive Gazans of food, water, and medical treatment was an intentional policy, and it backfired miserably. And this is one of those UN World Food Program aid trucks that have been denied access for months. And here is one of the tweets, and you can see this was last night when they started moving from Egypt, but I don't know what happened when they got to the Rafah gate. Was there an entire large contingent of Israelis there to block the trucks from going through? I don't know. I saw some stuff about it, but I have not seen the latest about what happened with those trucks. But
I mean, Egyptian military escort, anything?
Well,
no. Okay,
they're not doing that.
I mean, yeah, I get it.
I also, so fuck Israel, man. For all of this.
Yeah.
All right. And so that was our long drawn out fuck Israel segment. Please support the media you want to see. We certainly don't get monetized by YouTube for this. Our channel, INN, is not monetized. My other channel, youtube.com/@indie@INN, is monetized. You could leave a super chat there, but please don't. Do it at one of these other places if you can. Cash App, $Indie News Network, ko-fi.com/Indie News Network, paypal.me/Indie News Network. IndieNewsNow.com is our website that has a keep the media free section where you can do that. And then at the Substacks at INNnewsletter.com and at IndieMediaToday.com, where we are, again, live right now. Support independent media because we need it more than ever. I'll see you next week. I love you all. And have a good one, everyone.
See you in a bit, fam.
Ciao, baby.
We gonna out of here.
No! We just fucking lost the stream!
I guess this isn't such an awful place. Is that what you want?